Unfortunately, the pandemic has slightly slewed things in as much as it's hard to spend as much time with the Queen.
Royal insiders are in disbelief after a stunning new development from Buckingham Palace. King Charles has reportedly made a shocking proposal that changes everything. In a strategic move, Duchess Sophie has officially accepted a major role that once belonged to Meghan Markle. This decision has sent shockwaves through the royal family, sparking whispers of rivalry, redemption, and renewal within the monarchy. So, what exactly did Charles propose? And why Sophie? Today, we uncover the royal shakeup that's rewriting the family's future. The royal shift. It began quietly, without press conferences, flashing bulbs, or the usual royal fanfare. There were no official statements, no carefully worded palace press releases, just a whispered decision carried through the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace. Yet those few quiet words would soon reshape the royal landscape. King Charles III, eager to modernize the monarchy and restore balance after years of turbulence, made a move that few saw coming. Behind closed doors, he proposed something that stunned even his closest advisors. He wanted the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, to step into the public role once held by Meghan Markle. To the outside world, the decision might have seemed simple, one royal stepping in where another had stepped out. But within the palace, it was far more symbolic. Meghan had represented a fresh, modern voice, outspoken, glamorous, and adored by millions. Her departure alongside Prince Harry had left a visible gap in the royal family's working structure. Public engagements slowed, charitable causes needed representation, and a new generation of the monarchy struggled to find its rhythm. Charles knew that if the monarchy was to survive the scrutiny of a fast-changing world, it needed faces that embodied both tradition and quiet resilience. Sophie, with her decades of dedication, seemed the perfect fit. She had never chased the spotlight, yet had consistently earned respect through action rather than attention. When news of the king's private proposal reached her, the Duchess remained poised as always. During a small gathering, when a journalist asked if she felt prepared to fill the void Meghan Markle left behind, Sophie's response became the moment that shifted everything. With a gentle smile and eyes that held both patience and quiet fire, she said, "What did people think we were doing before?" It was simple, yet it landed like a royal thunderclap. In a single sentence, Sophie dismantled years of public misconception. She wasn't stepping up because of Meghan's absence. She had always been there, working quietly behind the scenes. Her words weren't boastful or bitter. They were a gentle but firm reminder that real service doesn't require a stage or applause. Those in the room fell silent. Across the media, her remarks spread like wildfire, a line that captured both grace and strength. Commentators called it the comeback of the decade, while palace insiders described it as the moment the crown subtly shifted its balance. For King Charles, the exchange confirmed what he had always believed. Sophie wasn't just a substitute, she was a symbol, a living example of the kind of steady, dependable service that had defined his late mother's reign. His proposal wasn't merely about filling a vacancy, it was about restoring the monarchy's heartbeat. And in that quiet yet powerful moment, it became clear: Sophie wasn't replacing anyone. She was redefining what it truly meant to serve the crown. King Charles' secret proposal didn't just reaffirm Sophie's place, but strengthened her role at the very heart of royal duty. What drove the king to make such a bold choice? And does Sophie truly deserve the title? Now, let's delve into how Sophie became the chosen one. The monarch's secret weapon. Long before the palace's quiet reshuffle or King Charles's unexpected proposal, Duchess Sophie had already carved her place as one of the monarchy's most dependable pillars. She didn't need grand speeches, glittering scandals, or magazine covers to prove her worth. Her record spoke louder than any royal title ever could. While others captured headlines and drew crowds, Sophie captured something far more enduring: hearts. Her work wasn't about appearances, it was about impact. Over the years, she had devoted herself to more than 70 charities across the world, focusing on causes that reflected compassion over glamour. From championing women's rights and promoting gender equality to supporting individuals with disabilities and those facing social exclusion, Sophie's presence carried quiet strength. Her dedication wasn't loud or flashy. It was genuine, consistent, and deeply human. Royal author Katie Nicholl once described her as the Windsor's secret weapon, and the nickname couldn't have been more fitting. Sophie had become the monarchy's silent force, a royal who preferred boardrooms to red carpets, hospital wards to gala halls. Her approach was simple: service without spectacle. She represented the crown with a dignity that reminded people what royalty once stood for: duty, discipline, and decency. King Charles saw that clearly. Amid a royal landscape often shaken by public controversies, shifting loyalties, and fractured relationships, Sophie remained the calm in the storm. Where others sought independence or escape from royal duties, she quietly embraced them. She showed up, not for applause, but because she believed in the work itself, to the king, which made her invaluable. He trusted her not just as a working royal, but as a reflection of the monarchy's best self: steady, loyal, and unshaken by noise. Sophie's strength wasn't just in her dedication, it was in her restraint. She had mastered the art of serving without overshadowing, leading without demanding attention. Her warmth and reliability made her one of the few royals the public genuinely admired without reservation. She wasn't chasing popularity, yet she earned it effortlessly through sincerity. In an era where modern voices and media-driven personalities were redefining the royal image, Sophie represented something timeless: quiet power. She didn't just maintain the crown's dignity, she refreshed it. Her every engagement, her every act of empathy reinforced the values King Charles wanted to preserve in his reign: purpose over performance and service over self. By the time the king looked for someone to embody the next phase of the monarchy, the choice was obvious. Sophie didn't just fit the role, she had long been living it. While others sought to reinvent what it meant to be royal, she simply reminded the world why the title mattered in the first place. Her grace became her armor, her humility her crown, and without ever demanding the spotlight, Duchess Sophie became the royal family's quiet revolution. She had already proven herself vital to royal life long before receiving any official title. But how did she rise to such an honored position within the monarchy? Now, let's uncover how Duchess Sophie transformed scandal into strength. The woman who earned her crown. Sophie's royal story didn't begin with grandeur or inherited privilege. It began with hard work, ambition, and an unshakable belief in perseverance. Long before she ever stepped inside palace walls, she was Sophie Rhys-Jones, a young woman from Oxford determined to make her mark on her own terms. She co-founded a small public relations firm, not because she was born into influence, but because she built it with pure determination, late nights, and unrelenting drive. Every campaign she led, every client she secured, taught her lessons about communication, composure, and, most importantly, resilience. Those lessons would soon become vital when life took an unexpected turn. In 2001, a sting operation by an undercover tabloid reporter nearly ended everything she had worked for. Tricked into making what were deemed inappropriate remarks, Sophie suddenly found herself at the center of a royal scandal that dominated headlines. Many assumed it would destroy her future within the monarchy. But Sophie didn't disappear, deny, or dramatize. She did something far rarer. She took accountability, learned, and quietly rebuilt. Leaving behind her business career, she redirected her focus entirely toward royal service. Rather than retreat into the shadows, she stepped into duty with renewed purpose. For Sophie, redemption wasn't about words or public gestures. It was about consistency, sincerity, and work. She began visiting charities across the UK and abroad, lending her time and presence to causes that rarely made front-page news: blindness prevention, women's empowerment, and youth education. Through those efforts, the public slowly began to see a different Sophie emerge, one not defined by scandal, but by service. Her humility became her strength. Her silence became her statement. She wasn't the loudest or most glamorous royal, but she became one of the most respected. Behind palace doors, her transformation didn't go unnoticed. Queen Elizabeth II saw her steadiness and often sought her company in private moments of reflection. But it was King Charles who understood her journey most deeply. He admired how she had turned personal adversity into purpose, a quality he valued as he sought to modernize the monarchy for a more grounded age. For Charles, Sophie represented the kind of royal the modern world needed: hardworking, scandal-free, and rooted in quiet dignity. Her resilience reminded him, and the entire institution, that mistakes don't define character. What you do afterward does. Years later, as Sophie stood beside King Charles in official ceremonies, it was clear her rise wasn't by favor or chance. It was earned, forged through trial, reflection, and unwavering dedication. She had walked through controversy and emerged stronger, wiser, and more steadfast than before. In the grand tapestry of royal history, Sophie's story stands as a rare example of grace under pressure, proof that even in a world obsessed with image, redemption, and quiet strength, still have the power to reign. Aside from deserving the role, could there be another reason behind Sophie's remarkable rise? And what truly happened to Meghan, who once held that very place? Was she pushed aside, or did she step away by choice? Now let's unravel the story behind the royal void that demanded to be filled. The royal exit that shook the crown. It began as a bold idea, a modern fairy tale rewritten for a new generation. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle first announced in early 2020 that they intended to step back from royal duties, the news sent a jolt through Buckingham Palace. The royal family, known for its centuries-old traditions and carefully guarded image, suddenly found itself at the center of a cultural earthquake. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were not just leaving their roles, they were challenging the very structure of monarchy itself. But what many did not realize at the time was that their decision wasn't abrupt. It unfolded slowly, like a royal sunset fading into uncertainty. Behind the palace gates, private discussions, emotional negotiations, and moments of quiet tension stretched over months. Queen Elizabeth II, though saddened, tried to navigate the situation with grace. She hoped time apart might eventually lead to reconciliation, that perhaps the couple's desire for independence could coexist with royal duty. But as the months passed, the distance, both emotional and physical, only grew. Then, on February 18, 2021, the statement that confirmed what the world had already begun to suspect was released. Buckingham Palace announced, with characteristic restraint, that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have confirmed to Her Majesty the Queen that they will not be returning as working members of the royal family. Though the words were brief, their meaning was monumental. It marked the official end of an era, a clean break between the monarchy and one of its most high-profile couples. A year earlier, Meghan and Harry had spoken of carving out a progressive new role within the royal institution, one that would allow them to balance duty with personal freedom. Many believed their plan might redefine the monarchy for the 21st century, blending tradition with modern independence. But in the end, their vision proved incompatible with the palace's ancient system of hierarchy, protocol, and control. What began as a hopeful evolution soon transformed into what many called the Megxit, a modern abdication that forced the royal family to rethink its identity. Their departure created more than just empty spaces on the royal calendar. It left an emotional void, a question mark about the future of the monarchy in an age of media, fame, and personal choice. For King Charles, then Prince of Wales, it was a reminder that not all crowns can hold their wearers, that even royal duty can bow to personal conviction. When Meghan stepped away, a royal void became impossible to ignore, and the monarchy needed a new duchess to carry its legacy. But was Sophie's rise quietly approved by Queen Elizabeth herself? What kind of bond did the two women truly share? Let's uncover the details. Queen Elizabeth's quiet confidant. Behind the tall gates and gilded doors of Buckingham Palace, few truly understood the depth of Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh's connection to Queen Elizabeth II. To the public, she was a dutiful royal, polite, elegant, and rarely seen making waves. But behind the scenes, she was far more than a distant in-law or another member of the Windsor Circle. She was a companion in the truest sense, someone who understood the Queen not through titles or protocol, but through quiet empathy and shared strength. Their bond wasn't forged in grand gestures or formal occasions. It grew in the still moments, the long walks at Balmoral, the private teas where laughter replaced royal ceremony, and the simple conversations that required no audience. The Queen, who had seen the best and worst of human character over her 70-year reign, found in Sophie a rare constant, someone who neither sought attention nor shied away from duty. Sources close to the palace have often said that the Queen saw something familiar in Sophie, a reflection of her own steadiness, her deep sense of service, and her ability to remain composed when the world spun into chaos. It's no surprise that Her Majesty once described Sophie as dependable to the core. Coming from the monarch herself, that was no small compliment. It was a mark of trust, the kind reserved only for those who had truly proven themselves in both loyalty and discretion. In many ways, Sophie filled a space that no one else could. She wasn't bound by ambition or politics. Her purpose was pure: to support, to listen, and to act when needed. During the Queen's final years, when public life became more demanding and private moments more precious, Sophie became one of her closest confidants. She was often there during private family gatherings and was known to share moments of prayer and reflection with the late monarch. A bond built not on status, but on soul. When the Queen passed, the loss hit Sophie in a way that words could barely describe. Her grief was quiet, but profound. Cameras captured her teary-eyed outside Windsor, walking behind the cortege with grace, her expression revealing both heartbreak and pride. To those who knew her, it was clear she wasn't just mourning a queen. She was mourning a mentor, a friend, and the woman who had believed in her when the world once doubted her. That trust didn't end with the Queen's passing. In fact, it became the foundation upon which King Charles would later rely as he began reshaping the monarchy for a new era. He had watched Sophie's steadiness through years of transition, her ability to balance duty with warmth, and her unshakable devotion to the royal cause. In her, Charles saw something essential: not just loyalty to the crown, but loyalty to the legacy his mother left behind. The monarchy's stability rests not only on crowns or titles, but on those like Sophie, the dependable heart that keeps the crown steady. Her bond with the Queen was built on loyalty, respect, and genuine affection. But did Sophie ever take advantage of the trust and privilege she enjoyed within the monarchy? Now, let's delve into how Sophie and Edward became the royal family's perfect example of stability and grace. The calm amid chaos. In a time when royal headlines were often filled with scandal, controversy, and whispered feuds, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and Prince Edward quietly built a world that stood in complete contrast. While other royal households became subjects of gossip columns and endless media speculation, Bagshot Park, their stately yet peaceful home in Surrey, became a symbol of balance, dignity, and rare tranquility within the monarchy. Their family lived by a different rhythm. There were no televised tell-alls, no dramatic interviews, and no leaked stories that shook the palace walls. Instead, what flourished was a sense of quiet purpose, a reflection of the values that had long anchored the royal family before fame, and modern pressures began to blur its meaning. Sophie and Edward seemed to understand something that others had forgotten, that being royal wasn't about spectacle, but about service. Inside Bagshot Park, the atmosphere was one of warmth and normalcy. Their children, Lady Louise Windsor and James, Earl of Wessex, were raised away from the public eye, given the space to grow up without the relentless scrutiny that haunted their royal cousins. Friends of the couple often described their home as one filled with laughter, simple family routines, and a focus on grounding rather than grandeur. Sophie herself once mentioned how much she valued a normal family life, and that truth was visible in every aspect of her existence. Her mornings often began not with a camera flash, but with briefings on her charitable projects, over 70 in total, covering causes from women's empowerment to rehabilitation programs for those with disabilities. In the afternoons, she could be found visiting hospitals, community centers, or military institutions, listening more than speaking, giving her full attention to those she met. She carried out her work with precision and without spectacle, earning quiet respect rather than noisy applause. Prince Edward mirrored that same composure. While others sought influence through visibility, he embodied quiet perseverance. Together, they formed a partnership that represented stability, not just for their family, but for the monarchy as a whole. Their relationship became an understated yet powerful reminder that modern royalty could still reflect old-fashioned values: loyalty, consistency, and modesty. This steadfast approach did not go unnoticed by King Charles. As he stepped into his reign and sought to reshape the monarchy for a more disciplined and focused future, he looked toward the example of Sophie and Edward. They represented exactly what he wanted the royal family to become: less about public drama and more about enduring duty. In many ways, their marriage became the living embodiment of the phrase, "duty over drama." When other royal couples seemed to struggle under the weight of attention, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh thrived in its absence. Their strength came not from headlines, but from harmony, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful legacies are built in silence. Despite their deep ties to the royal family, Sophie and her husband have always chosen calm over chaos, purpose over publicity. Could this quiet strength be the reason King Charles saw her as worthy of both a royal title and his trust? Now let's explore when purpose outshines popularity. A new era under King Charles. When King Charles III ascended the throne, it was more than just a change in leadership. It was the dawn of a new royal era. The monarchy stood at a crossroads, burdened by years of public criticism, fractured relationships, and fading trust. The time for glamour and tabloid headlines had passed. What the crown needed now was not another celebrity figure, but a symbol of stability. Someone who embodied quiet strength, integrity, and enduring service. And that person was Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. For years, Sophie had been the family's silent constant, loyal, dependable, and untouched by scandal. While others sought attention, she focused on action. Her reputation for diligence and humility had already earned her the respect of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and King Charles saw in her the same steadfastness his mother had always valued. In a family too often divided by ego, Sophie stood apart, not because she was loud, but because she was consistent. So, when Charles made his shocking proposal, granting her the historic title of Duchess of Edinburgh, it was far more than a ceremonial gesture. It was a statement of intent. The title, once held by Prince Philip, carried a legacy of loyalty, discipline, and service. To give it to Sophie was to acknowledge her as the modern embodiment of those very values. It was also a subtle signal to the world. The monarchy was evolving, and its future would rest on substance, not spectacle. The decision also carried symbolic weight in another way. Sophie's new role mirrored, and in many ways replaced, the space Meghan Markle once occupied before stepping down from royal duties. But where Meghan's time in the spotlight had been defined by media storms and emotional turbulence, Sophie's approach offered calm precision. She didn't chase interviews or headlines. She let her work speak for itself. Whether visiting conflict zones, advocating for survivor violence, or representing Britain at global summits, Sophie's presence carried quiet authority. Inside the palace, her rise brought a renewed sense of credibility. Courtiers called her the monarchy's steady heartbeat, and King Charles increasingly relied on her judgment in navigating public appearances and delicate family matters. Her style wasn't about grandeur. It was about grace. Each appearance was carefully measured, every word deliberate, and every gesture infused with purpose. The Duchess of Edinburgh had become something rare in modern royalty, a figure of trust. While the world debated the institution's future, Sophie was living proof that its relevance still had roots. Her elevation marked more than her own success. It symbolized the monarchy's desire to return to its essence: duty, devotion, and quiet endurance. In a time when crowns glittered under the harsh light of scrutiny, Sophie reminded the world that true royalty doesn't need noise to shine, only purpose. King Charles saw a reason to reshape the monarchy through Sophie's remarkable rise. But what does her elevation truly mean for the future of the royal family? Now let's uncover how Sophie redefined what true royal power means. The Duchess who chose duty over drama. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, never accepted her new royal role to compete or overshadow anyone. Her decision came from a place of quiet purpose. She didn't crave the spotlight or the applause. What drove her was something far deeper: a lifelong belief that true power doesn't come from titles, headlines, or royal fanfare, but from service that endures even when no one is watching. Her journey into this renewed role under King Charles wasn't about replacing Meghan Markle's position within the royal fold. It was about rebuilding the meaning of duty in an era when loyalty had begun to lose its shine. While others chose independence over obligation, Sophie chose the harder path, the one of constancy. She remained when others retreated, carried the royal banner when others laid it down, and continued the quiet work that keeps the crown steady, even in turbulent times. Sophie's strength has never been loud. It doesn't flash across tabloids or trend on social media. Instead, it's found in the details: the hours spent visiting hospitals without cameras, the speeches made to empower women across the world, the moments when she offered comfort to families facing hardship. These acts of dedication might not make global headlines, but they build something stronger than public fascination: respect. Her presence within the royal family represents a kind of leadership that doesn't need validation. When King Charles envisioned a monarchy that values substance over spectacle, Sophie naturally became its heart. Her calm steadiness reminded both the palace and the public that the truest symbols of royalty are not crowns or gowns, but compassion, resilience, and quiet dignity. Sophie's journey also reflects something timeless about the British monarchy: that its survival depends not on grandeur, but on grace. Every step she takes is a reminder that royal life isn't meant to be a race for attention, but a lifelong commitment to service. Where others sought to define freedom by leaving, Sophie defined it by staying true to her promise, to her role, and to the people who still believe in the purpose behind the crown. She didn't inherit this moment by chance. She earned it through decades of devotion, discipline, and humility. In many ways, her story completes a circle, showing that in the modern age of fame and noise, the quiet ones can sometimes carry the greatest influence. So when history looks back on this era, it may not remember Sophie as the Duchess who replaced Meghan, but as the woman who restored meaning to royal duty. While crowns may glitter brightly for a season, they eventually fade with time. But character, the kind that stands firm through scandal, silence, and change, that kind of brilliance never fades. It is eternal. And it is exactly what Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, now represents for the modern monarchy. What do you think of Sophie's rise? Can she truly live up to royal expectations? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.